This is the meat and potatoes of working from home, in my opinion, is establishing your work hours and routine, which I think is vital. So I do this, and as I was prepping for this, I did a little bit of research, and a lot of studies out there have said similar things. But I think you want to build transition in and out of work. So transitioning into work, for example, I get up early, I take my shower, I get ready to go. This is just me, but I actually do, like, I start my coffee early. So that's brewing. I let the dog out to use the restroom or whatever. And then I sit down and actually do some meditation. I don't know if anyone does meditation. For me in the morning, it's kind of like my routine. It allows me to sort of gear into the day. And so I used to do that prior. I do that now. And so I kind of have this transition where it's like, okay, the meditation's done. I let the dog in and feed him, grab my coffee and head upstairs, and I sit down and I plug in. And so to me, that's sort of my transition into work. And then out of work, at the end of the day, I did this and I always thought it was kind of funny, but a lot of people do this too, is I think something to be said for like unplugging, putting your stuff away, but then maybe even changing clothes, maybe even getting into something more comfortable, getting into the other room, and sort of mentally and physically sort of shutting it down. So I think some transition in and out of work could be helpful. You want to schedule and plug things into your calendar as best you can. And so if there's appointments you need to do, obviously we're all familiar with Outlook and managing our calendars, but I would continue to do that now, and even more so. So we're going to talk about this in a second, but call blocking, prospect blocking, practice your sales skill blocking. And these are all activities you can just plug into your calendar. So when you look at it, feeling like you have a schedule, I think is really important. This one's important. Clearly define your working hours and communicate both to your bosses, to your peers, and to your friends. I observe, I'm sure you guys, if you're anything like me, and I sent this link to some of my friends on a message, so they might even be on this call. But I think when you're all at home, I think it's easy to fall into the trap of like the friendly banter back and forth on text message, and going back and forth here, or they want to chat about something when you're in the middle of a work thing. I think you want to try to do your best to compartmentalize those times and define your working hours. And if you have a spouse or significant other at home, this one was really important for me prior to the coronavirus crisis going on, because, and I'll share with you now, my wife and I have a baby. He's almost 2, and I've been working from home since he was born. And we're fortunate that she's been working from home. Not working from home, but she's been staying at home full time as a homemaker. And so it was hard because like I was at home, she was at home with the baby, but like she would oftentimes ask me for, hey, can you hop in here and do this? Can you hop in here and do this? And I always wanted to help with the baby, but it's important to communicate if there's certain things you need to do. It's like, hey, I'll be available at this time, and then I'll be available to help you at these times, and try to avoid having the two blend, because then it's hard to get yourself into a rhythm. So I don't know, that's just something for me that was really helpful. It is important to set some social time. So when you're in an office environment, you can pop over, you can chat with your friends, you can connect with your neighbors, you can, you have that human interaction, that element, which is really important. So just because you're at home, it doesn't mean that necessarily needs to go away. Maybe you schedule some social time. Maybe you guys all hop on a group FaceTime or a Google Hangout together. Maybe for at a certain point, you guys all get your phones out and you're sort of going back and forth and messaging that way. It's important to maintain some social element, especially if you live by yourself. Again, I'm fortunate in that my wife is home with me, our son is there, so my social times are oftentimes with them. But if you don't have that, it's important to have some outlet socially. So try to connect with your colleagues, your workers. If you're a leader on the call, maybe schedule some time just to get on and see how everybody's doing. It's important to have some of that social interaction, and make sure you schedule that. This is something took me some time. Embrace the webcam. I don't know that I'm still totally comfortable on camera, but I'm getting better. And I think the idea of people seeing you and you seeing them and having some semblance of human interaction, I think is important. And so it's more, a little bit more intimate, a little bit more personal than just messaging on Slack and text. So I like that. And again, if you're going to hop on a call, why don't you just, if you're on Zoom, or if you have there's a lot of free services for virtual calls, maybe just send it to your friends and be like, hey, let's hop on cam and check in, see how everyone's doing for 15 minutes. Be comfortable on the camera. And I think it's important right now for us to see each other and to have that personal connection. This kind of goes into my earlier bullet, but set clear boundaries with your family and friends. Like, to me, I love my friends to death, but they'll get onto a conversation and I'll need to put my phone away. And then when I'll pick it up, I'll see 250 unread WhatsApp or, text messages about a conversation, something random. So to me, like, putting that stuff to the side and limiting my distractions is important. But then when I get into a work break, or I'll go downstairs and I'll make a snack and I'll engage with my family, I'll bring my phone out and engage with my friends. And so setting those boundaries, I think, is important. So whatever you're comfortable with, make sure you do some version of that. Call and activity blocking. I did this when I worked in an office. I do this now working from home. I schedule everything in my calendar. I schedule certain calls, certain times. If I'm going to do prospecting, certain things. If I have an initiative to check in with my team, I schedule as much of that stuff in there as I can. So I want to feel like when I look at my calendar, I've got activities set up to get me through the day. So that's something that a lot of people do and a lot of people have had success with. And so I think doing something there. I'm like Ron Burgundy. For those of you that have been in my trainings, I always message this example. I'm like Ron Burgundy reading the teleprompter. Like, if it's on the calendar, it's going to happen. If it's not, it's likely not going to happen. So for me, just getting it on the calendar is a good thing. Through my research, I came across someone that had shared this, and I think this is really appropriate. I do this, but I didn't realize a lot of people really struggle with this, but like, be careful with the chores. Everyone's got their own routine, but it's easy to fall into the trap of like, hey, it's 10:30. Let's, what do I need to do around the house? Am I doing the dishes? Do I have other activities? Things like walking the dog and getting outside are great. If you need to take out the trash, that stuff's good. But don't try to tackle a project like, hey, I'm going to clean out my closet or clean out my files at 10 o'clock in my workday. I don't think that's necessarily productive. I would still backload those to your weekends, put those, before work, after work. But I think little activities like walking the dog, being outside, walking the baby, those are all great activities to get out of the house, but try to avoid, doing all of your laundry from 10 to 12, unless you can really compartmentalize, where like you go down there for a break, put it in, grab a snack, go upstairs. When you unplug, go down, move it. You got to be really structured. But I think if you're not careful, you'll find out that, you're spending an hour or two doing sort of daily tasks around the house. And I think it could seep into you being a little bit not quite as productive. And be sure to schedule yourself breaks. And so I think 15-minute breaks every hour, as you get used to this routine, is sufficient. Maybe it's 5, maybe it's 10, maybe it's every 2 hours. It's a little bit arbitrary. You got to find what works for you. But if you don't take a break, you're going to find yourself sometimes like me, where your eyes are literally glued to the screen. And it's hard to really, mentally do anything else. And you got to remember, when you worked in an office, you had a lot of interaction, you had a lot of social engagement. Make sure you schedule time to take breaks and just get away from work, because not doing so could be harmful.